For as long as humanity has existed, one question has followed us through every generation, every civilization, and every moment of history. Does God exist? It sounds like a simple question, but it may be the biggest question humanity has ever asked. For thousands of years, people have looked into the night sky, watched the sun rise, experienced love, loss, suffering, and wonder, and felt that there might be something greater beyond what we can see. Others have looked at the exact same world and reached a completely different conclusion. They believe the universe needs no creator, no higher power, only natural laws, time, and chance. And despite centuries of philosophy, religion, science, and debate, nobody has been able to prove the answer beyond all doubt. So why does this question refuse to disappear? To understand that, we need to start at the beginning. Long before modern science existed, humans were already searching for meaning. Ancient civilizations across different parts of the world developed beliefs about creators and higher beings. People created stories to explain storms, life, death, and the universe itself. But over time, the question changed. It stopped being, "What do we believe?" and became, "What can we know?" One of the strongest arguments for God begins with something simple: cause and effect. Everything around us seems to appear to come from something else. Buildings are built, trees grown from seeds, rivers begin somewhere. Nothing we experience seems to appear from absolutely nothing. So, people asked, if everything has a cause, what caused the universe? According to modern science, the universe appears to have begun billions of years ago in what we call the Big Bang. Before that point, space and time as we understand them may not have existed, and that creates a difficult question. If time itself had a beginning, what existed before time? Some philosophers argue that the universe cannot explain its own existence. They believe something outside space, outside matter, and outside time must have caused everything. To believers, that explanation is God. But critics quickly challenge this idea. If everything needs a cause, then what caused God? Supporters answer that God is different, not created, not limited by time, existing eternally. For some people, that explanation feels logical. For others, it creates even more questions. Then there is another argument, one that becomes harder to ignore the more people study the universe. Design. Look around. Earth sits at a distance from the sun that allows life to survive. Gravity behaves with incredible precision. Physical laws remain consistent across unimaginable distances. The universe appears ordered, balanced, almost unbelievably specific. Some argue that if certain conditions changed even slightly, stars may never form, planets may never exist, life may never happen. This idea became known as fine-tuning, and to many believers, fine-tuning points toward intention, not accident, not randomness, design. But critics disagree. They argue complexity does not automatically mean design. Snowflakes look designed, yet nobody creates them. Evolution created extraordinary forms of life through natural processes over immense periods of time. Life became more complex gradually, not instantly. According to this view, the appearance of design may simply be the result of natural laws working over billions of years. Then there is another question, one that moves away from science and directly into human experience: morality. Across different cultures, people recognize ideas like justice, compassion, honesty, and fairness. People disagree on details, but concepts of right and wrong appear almost everywhere. Why? Some argue that morality points toward a higher source. That objective right and wrong cannot exist unless something greater defines them. Others believe morality developed naturally, that humans survived because cooperation improved survival. In this view, morality evolved, not because of divine command, but because it helped people live together. Then comes perhaps the most difficult question of all. If God exists, why does suffering exist? Everyday people experience loss, war, disease, natural disasters, pain that seems unfair and impossible to explain. If God is all-powerful, why allow suffering? This question has challenged believers for centuries. Some say suffering exists because free will exists. Others believe suffering creates growth, meaning, and compassion. But critics argue that many forms of suffering seem random, pointless, and difficult to reconcile with the idea of a perfectly good creator. Science adds another layer to this conversation. Over the last few hundred years, humanity has explained more about reality than ever before. Lightning once seemed supernatural. Now we understand electricity. Disease once appeared mysterious. Now we study biology. Planets once seemed guided by unseen forces. Now physics explains their movement. Because of this, some people believe science is gradually replacing the need for God. But others argue science was never designed to answer every question. Science can explain how stars form, but not why existence exists. Science can describe consciousness, but not fully explain subjective experience. Science can calculate time, but not meaning. And maybe that is where this entire debate becomes more interesting. Because perhaps the question of God was never about evidence. Maybe it is also about perspective. Two people can stand under the same night sky. One sees particles and physics, the other sees purpose. One sees coincidence, the other sees intention. One sees a universe with no creator, the other sees creation, and both believe they are being rational. There is also a third position, people who say, we simply do not know. This idea is called agnosticism. It doesn't claim certainty, it accepts uncertainty. Maybe some questions are bigger than current human understanding. Maybe the answer exists. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe humanity hasn't reached maturity yet. So, does God exist? After thousands of years of searching, there is still no answer accepted by everyone. The arguments continue. The debates continue. The search continues. And maybe that tells us something. Because perhaps the reason this question never disappears is because it touches something deeper than logic. It touches identity, meaning, purpose, and the need to understand why we are here. Whether someone believes in God, rejects God, or remains undecided, every person eventually reaches the same question. Why is there something instead of nothing? And until humanity answers that question, the search may never end.